the crisis that we are facing currently, I believe, is a crisis in relating, in relationships. The only prototype of relating that we know from our evidence is one of patriarchal control, using punishment, shaming, blaming, judging, criticizing, coercing, manipulating, patriarchal, in order to have an order, so that everything is in the neat boxes, understandable, predictable, reliable. So your individuality is kind of sacrificed in this demand, in this dictatorship, right? Authoritarian, right? Supremacy, patriarchal, father at the top. Does the father give birth? Does the father lay down on the earth and take care of the earth? Does the father who sits at the top with the least amount of life's experience, setting rules for everyone below that it considers below in the pyramid scheme, and it has no lived experience of all the intersections that people embody? Do they know about women's everyday struggle, a mother's struggle, a daughter's, a worker, right? They just want things to be efficient and something they can control and manage, because the reality of us individuals being full life force, sovereign beings, cosmic beings with subjective views and the right to the subjectivity. And the right to the subjectivity, I want to clarify, is not a right to cause harm. I'm not saying that. Actually, that's the right that the patriarchy somehow feels entitled to. In your name and in my name, this President Biden is giving billions and billions of dollars to Israel, right-wing government, another patriarchal, supremacist, to kill Palestinian kid. And now today, that President Biden is meeting with authoritarian dictator Xi Jinping from China, another patriarchal, oppressing my people, who protects land, who didn't loot, because we know that it would create disharmony in the environment. And in the pursuit of modernity, and progress and civilization, they're looting Tibet like the European colonizers looted here in America, in the United States and Canada, and down also Latin America and South America, even there. And that's what's happening in the African continent. Both European colonizers and Chinese colonizer and Middle Eastern colonizers. And the Iran Revolution is against the Iranian fundamentalist extremist patriarchs. Within my own Tibetan community in the micro space, there is chaos and dysfunction as a result of this same energy. It's a patriarchal energy. Patriarchal energy with power is always abuse, and it needs to be restrained. It's addicted. It's diseased. And so we need to restrain it so it doesn't kill anymore. We can't keep giving more and more resources, and because we're scared, or because we'll get something out of it. Right? It's patriarchal, capitalistic, right? That's just, it fits into the value system of patriarchy, this capitalism, right? Loot again, exploit for profit. We cannot eat money, but we can eat things that grows on earth. And if earth is poisoned, we cannot be fed eating credit cards or, I don't know, with bitcoins and, PayPals and everything. You cannot eat anything with it if it goes down. But having a clean, fertile, healthy earth, soil matters, because that's our gut. Those microbes goes here, and these goes, the serotonins, right? The gut microbes affects our mental health. It's all interconnected, right? And this is just food system. There's an education system, right? There's a pharmaceutical system, right? Healthcare. All profit driven. Behind the profit is greed, right? Hoarding that comes out of scarcity. It's never enough at the top, at the demigods, the hungry ghost lords. So we have to say stop, because they're addicted. If you give them, they'll use it. The your internal indigenities, your feeling of an inferior as an indigenous person that looks up at the value system and the vision of a capitalist, patriarch, oppressive, liars, cheaters, psychopaths, sociopaths. You look up and you want some of that. And then at the same time you say, I feel powerless. This one you can take care of yourself, right? Even if you're working in the system, but But this one, you can take care of yourself, right? How do you take responsibility of the intersection that you're sitting at in the workspace you are at? Yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. Yes, you'll be challenged. And you're asked to stay at the post. Because every one of us are asked to stay at the post. Whatever post we chose, because that's a choice that you made. Because you were getting a return. And that's wonderful. And then you have a responsibility as an earthling. Before you were a capitalist, you were a creature of this earth. Your body is made out of her oil, soil, seeds, fruits, vegetables, rice. Whatever you eat, it came from her. And so you have an intersectional responsibility there as well. That when your identities, the intersection starts contradicting, you have to bridge. Otherwise, you're going to get fragmented from inside. And it's going to create chaos inside yourself, anxieties. And when you give up, depression. And the only way to clean this energy up is to show up to the reckoning. You can stay wherever you're at, whatever workplace you're at, and you have to clean it up from inside. Or you can make other, if that's too much, that assignment is too much, then choose another one, because then it'll die. If there are less and less people working in this industry, it'll die. But you're keeping it going, so you have a responsibility to speak up. Like, for how long are we going to pretend that everything is not crashing around us? The children are not being killed. They're our children. Those Tibetan million sent by force to boarding school. I grew up in a boarding school in India as a refugee. They're taken from their parents by force. I had to come because of China too. What's happening in Gaza? The massacre. And we look and we turn away and we have our own kids here. And somehow, I don't know what happens. Somehow we think like our kids are somehow safe when you let something like that happen on the other side. Somehow it's not interconnected. That today's victim is tomorrow's oppressor. Look at Israel. And as Tibetans, if we don't do a good job of healing our trauma, we will turn into these fundamentalists. Because we already have some in our community. And this is not just two cases. It's every single, you look at it, you will see it. Everything is connected. And it all falls under the patriarchy. Supremacy of the father. And what kind of father? The one that has power. How do you get the power? You get it through wealth. And that's why you have the greed to have more and more wealth. So you can have more and more power. Power to do what? To abuse with no accountability. That's what that power does. Instead of taking responsibility to create a heaven on earth, they abuse the power to create hell on earth, and they don't take responsibility, and they do it in front of our eyes, and somehow they think they'll get away. And we're here to say, fuck you. fuck you. We will not let this go. Not in my name, not under my watch. I'm not fighting with a person particularly in the liberal space or right wing or wherever. It's a system. It's a supremacy system. And so I look inward and I have to renunciate that part of myself too. That supremacy, that somehow I'm above activism. That I'm like somehow above, I'm floating in the space. No, my spirituality is floating in the space and not in this body, taking care of this earth. And this fight of patriarchy is not against men too. Know your definition of what patriarchy is. It's the supremacy. Right now, it looks like supremacy of the father. And if I don't do a good job of coming into my heart and work with this rage before I die, or before I become a full matriarchy, I will become that abusive, power abusive. Like abusive of the power that I'm, had the privilege of having. And that's my internal work. That's the work of my own integrity, that I'll not do it. That I'll check constantly. And then I'll be checked by the violence I see, by the unhappiness the society experiences, will be the mirror of the success. And I don't want power. I don't think mothers want power, because it's full of responsibility when you have collective power. That's why my spiritual leader and political leader, right? His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama gave up his power away so he can focus on. Because with power comes great responsibility to not abuse it. Do not get corrupted by it. Because when it does, this is what happens. So all these deaths are at the hands of patriarchy. Mothers give life. We know how long we nurtured. We know how long we gardened. So something can bloom. So something can shoot up. Life is precious to mothers. So I'm asking you, my invitation is first to you as mothers, because you're the kitchen and the heart of your home, and you have power. You have power to transform the energy of the home that you reside in. And you have a responsibility, not just to your child that you birth. You're connected with all the wombs of the mothers of humans and other than humans. Because we all suffer when we lose our own. And the invitation that we are faced with in this time is to expand our capacity, to grow in our bodies, to take bigger space than the narrow identity of the propaganda that you were fed with, that you only have one body and that is of your nation. Only one identity you have. A Jew, a Tibetan, a Palestinian. We are with you, Palestinian. Not because you're a Palestinian, because you are our conscience. Because you are our responsibility, just like we are your responsibility too. And Jews, you are our responsibility. And we are your responsibility too. And to the Chinese people, we are responsible for each other. For how we live on this earth, this small blue, green, brown ocean, rock floating in the space. This dividing, this ownership, this enforcing of identity for the sake of order is oppression. It's a patriarchal oppression. This desire to look for ease and bypass nuances and complexity. Is a patriarchal conditioning to put people into boxes, to not meet anybody and everybody with curiosity and ask, what do you care about? What matters the most to you? And why do you care about that so much? What breaks your heart? Instead of some assumptions on each other that you are this, you're an anti-Semite because you said free Palestine for Palestine, right? Or you're, Islamophobe if you said safety of Jews matter. Or if I say Chinese life matter, that I'll be called a traitor. Not by everybody. There will be people. And similarly on the other side, they'll say the same thing. If we open our eyes, we see the game. And we see the cost of that game. And your silence is a collusion. Because when you stay silent, we don't know where you stand. And this is democracy. Everybody has a voice. And if you don't use your voice, and you keep blaming, it's such it's so powerless place. So say what matters to you. Say ceasefire. No more killing under my name. It doesn't matter the politics. just say no killing anymore. I don't care whether it's Israel or Hamas. This killing in the name, in our name, by few patriarchs who are hungry for power and power to abuse, like I said, and have no responsibility. And it's not just war, it's sex trafficking, right? Child sex trafficking, right? We know the pedophilia is rampant over here. Why are you doing pedophilia stuff? So I can fulfill the sense pleasures. So what is that all that for? To fulfill the extreme of my neurotic pleasures. Buying islands. So I can do just unchecked, access to drugs and the sex industry. And they're all doing it under our name. They're using our collective resources to fulfill their perverted pleasures. That's the game. They get off from killing. And you and I need to restrain that. All of us needs to say no more killing under our name. We did not give you permission. No, I did not give you permission to massacre in my name. As an American citizen, as somebody who voted for you, Biden, you're a total disappointment. Not surprise, but disappointment. But that's like my wake-up call too. That somehow voting for the lesser of the two evil will protect us from evil. I don't know, if Trump was here, he would do the same. Maybe, maybe not. What's the difference in so many sense? One's like killing you slowly and the other is just like overtly, I don't know which one is more cruel. Someone pretending to be good, liberal, and keep saying, I'm your ally, but while just keep feeding the warmongers? Am I supposed to get pissed off at that? Or somebody who directly says, like, I'm a supremacist? Because I've been hurt a lot. I feel so inferior from inside. I can deal with that better. I can be honest with that. So anyways, I know it's a lot of anger stuff coming out. Like, I think it's a lot of frustration. And it's not necessarily at an individual, because that's the system, right? Like the system of apathy, individualistic. That somehow the food that you eat, the coffee that you drink, the shampoo that you use, the stove that you use here, somehow it's like it's just like a magically isolated in America. Like that. It doesn't realize all the interconnected web of the underground before it comes into the manifestation of this. The sweat and tears of the sweatshop. Mothers and children and fathers who worked, paid bare minimum. The resources stolen from occupied lands. Cheap labor in prison. You know what I mean? And it comes here. And I'm supposed to disconnect and not fight for them? And I'm too sensitive for doing that? Because if I don't do that, every single day of my life. That's how climate crisis happens. Because we all colluded. Because those who did this were too intense, too sensitive, too crazy, trying to gaslight our reality of what we know. We're tired of that. We're no longer doing that. We don't want to. I'm not going to be gaslit anymore. I'm saying what you guys do out there makes no sense. Pretending that it's not collapsing. I see clients who are like, anxiety, like despair, depression, panic. Because this energy that I'm expressing is not expressed. And the system that said that it was going to protect, as long as you keep it repressed, is collapsing. It's no longer working. It's too much. It's leading to cancers and autoimmunes and inflammations and fire everywhere. And tsunamis and, like everywhere they're erupting. All the pain points that they have done by using force and violence and shame and guilt to put it down is oozing out. And I'm saying, yeah, that was inevitable. Yeah. And it's not your parents that you need to be angry at. It's not your black brothers and sisters, cis hetero, siblings, kin, indigenous kin, white kin, Chinese, whatever, all of it. It's not. But that was necessary. We had to go through it so that we can see things clearly. But we know that there is a overarching supremacist ideology that has infiltrated every part of our globe, inside our psyche, in our relationships, created fragmentation inside. And we are here to come home to join all of the fragmentations, the puzzle piece, all the bones that were lost eons and eons long time ago through the lineage of forgetfulness are all brought back. So, in this time and space, with the resources we have, with the privilege, access, and the capacities that we have, according to the depth and the breadth of our trauma and our active, conscious work to integrate all of that, depending on all of these, I'm asking, what is your sacred responsibility at this time? Knowing what you know. And I'm not saying the information. I'm saying knowing what you know inside your own nervous system. What is your depression about? What is this despair? Is the despair because of the outside, or is the despair because you're not getting up, stepping in to your role, and you're despairing at yourself? You're despairing because you're waiting for someone on the outside to show you the path, because you've been conditioned by the whole lifetime to trust in a God that's outside, the government that's outside, patriarch that's outside, the school, all the authority, to second guess. The experts are outside. That you are not an expert of your own sensations. That someone from outside should tell you when you're hungry and when you're feeling ache, and what to do with those ache. That level of disconnection is deliberate. And the reclamation is a reclamation of our enoughness. We don't need to be stuffed up. Bigger is not better. Bigger is greedier. Bigger is better if you can include everyone in there. If your generosity is bigger, you know, how beautiful. If your generosity is nil and your scarcity hole is huge, bigger is full abyss, a trap. It's a black hole. And when you're the patriarch and you have the power to abuse and keep trying to fill that void with violence and pleasure seeking at any cost, completely self-centered, yeah, you'll sacrifice. This energy will sacrifice every single one of us. And even if you pretend to be not aware, and even if you're truly not aware, it will not save you. So, we need your voice right now. We need your voice right now to call your reps, if you can, to show up in front of these offices where it matters. Hold them, these people in power position, accountable. Do that in your interrelationship. Do it inside yourself first. Practice, right? And we will fail. We will falter. You know, we will blunder. That's when the practice of compassion comes. And I'll try to make another video on that later. A little bit of fire here, and then I'll cool it down with the next one. Because ultimately we're doing it for collective liberation. So the landing spot is pretty groundless. And there's no ground. Like, I think Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche said it like, you know, you're falling. You're falling. That's the bad news, right? The good news is there's no ground. And it's true. There's no ground. We are truly floating on Earth, in this cosmos, in this deathless space. In the big picture, that's the landing. But the mustard seed is here in our caring, as if everything matters completely. as if pain is real, as if suffering matters, as if the tears that comes out are actually real, and they are real at a level, right? And so appreciation for that, like a full honoring of this manifested reality, the rituals of this world, right? There is an inherent order to it. Without the need of the patriarchal order, there's already an order. This is the order. The head is here and the feet is there. Does that mean that, this head is more superior than that? Depending on where you're at, depending on where your root is the root here or the root down here? This orientation, vertical orientation is like very confusing, But then when you go like that, all the energy flows. And there are no directions. But we honor as if it matters, right? With what, naturally, the orientation that we've been endowed with. We respect that. And we honor that. And we, do our best to follow the law of the cosmos. Do no harm. You have no right to harm. And yet you're a sovereign being and you can do whatever you want. But you have no right to cause harm. Not even to an insect. So, that's that. And I'll see you in the next video.